Hey, what's up everybody? This is the Wheelman282 here again, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the Sega Saturn and how to mod it. I'm pretty excited about this video. The Saturn is one of my favorite game consoles, probably of all time. Has some really great games, highly underappreciated. If you've never owned a Saturn, or if you've never actually played the games on a Saturn, you're doing yourself a big disservice. Has some really great games. But in today's video, what we're going to be talking about is basically modding it, and specifically installing a region-free BIOS and a mod chip. So before we actually start out talking about these two devices here, I want to start by talking about what we're trying to accomplish here. So you probably already know that the US Saturn library is kind of small. It has some good games, but not as many as the Japanese library. So we either want to import games from Japan to play it on our US Saturn, or we want to burn the games, whatever, to take advantage of, those games. So in order to do that, we need to either change the region on our Saturn, or unlock the region, or whatever we got to do to play those games. So let's start out first talking about region unlocking your Saturn. So really there's basically three methods to doing this. The first one is probably the easiest. You can just take a cartridge, not any of these, but take a cartridge, pop it in your Saturn, like an Action Replay or ST Key or whatever there is out there. There's lots of carts like that, and basically it will region unlock your Saturn so you can play Japanese games on your American Saturn, or vice versa. If you have a Japanese Saturn, you can play American games on there. So that's the easiest. That method's fine. It works great. There are a couple of caveats, or maybe things to watch out for. First off, the cartridge slot on the Saturn isn't known to be the most reliable thing ever. They do eventually wear out, so swapping carts in and out to do different things, it can eventually wear the cartridge slot out and eventually just stop working. And maybe you can get in there and refurbish it. I don't know, those pins are pretty small, so that's one option you have. Another option is to install a region switch in your Saturn, so you can just flip a switch and it changes it to whatever region game you want to play. So you could install a switch in here. If you want to play a Japanese game, flip it to Japan region and put your Japanese game in it, and it would play it. That's fine. A lot of people do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I personally don't really like the idea of drilling a hole in my Saturn. I like to keep it original as I can, so I kind of shy away from that. Some people use the MPEG, the little door in the back for the MPEG card. I guess you could get away with that if you wanted to. Kind of up to you. And the third option for playing regions, or playing other region games on your Saturn, is to install a region-free BIOS, which is this guy right here. So basically this involves disassembling the Saturn all the way down to the motherboard, removing the old BIOS IC and installing a new one, which would be this guy right here. Definitely the most intensive procedure, other than installing a couple of wires for a switch or just popping a card in there. That kind of makes you ask the question, well, why would you want to do that? If you can just do something easy, why would you do something a little bit more difficult like that? Well, it's got its advantages. First off, you don't have to use a cartridge in the slot. You can use it for a memory card, or extra work RAM. Use it for games, what have you. Anything else you need to use the cartridge slot for, there you go. Also, you don't have to drill a hole in your Saturn to install a switch. It's completely stealth, so if the average person wouldn't know that this guy was in there, because it's soldered right to the motherboard, just like the original. It's also more convenient than the other two methods, whereas you got to get up and put a cartridge in, or take a cartridge out, or flip a switch. With a region-free BIOS, you put in any game you want and it'll play it, no problems. Very little work involved. So those are your options as far as playing regions, or playing different regions. So that's what we're going to be doing in the video today, is installing a region-free BIOS. In addition to that, we're going to be installing a mod chip so that we can play backups of original games, or burn games. So as far as playing burn games, you have a couple of options. You can either do the disk swap method. If you've watched my other video on how to do that, it's very simple to do. However, you do run the risk of damaging the CD drive inside. So it's an option that if you want to take it, but you do run that risk. Next, you have the option of installing a Modchip. So installing Modchips in a Saturn is stupid easy. I mean, a monkey could do it. It's literally plug and play and then solder a wire and you're done. It's extremely easy to install a Modchip. So, I mean, honestly, there's no real excuse for you not getting a Modchip to go in your Saturn. There's kind of like a rumor going around that Modchips for Saturns are rare. The old ones are. However, this is manufactured brand new. I mean, this is 2015, 2016. This is new stuff, man. So real quickly, let's take a look at the advantages you have of doing this setup here. So first off, obviously there's burn games. So you don't have to import originals from Japan. You don't have to buy original games that can cost from just a few dollars up to, you know, hundreds of dollars for, you know, whatever game you want to play. You just download a copy of a game from like the ISO zone, which is where I frequent much. Burn it to a disk, pop it in, and you're good to go. It'll just play it as long as you got the mod chip. And the same goes for, you know, with the region-free BIOS. If you want to download a Japanese copy of and burn it to a disk, as long as you have a region-free BIOS or, you know, any other region bypass method, pop it in, it'll play it just fine. Now I've got a couple of carts sitting out here. These are the only two games that you really have to worry about when you're using like an action replay card or an ST key. So this is King of Fighters 95 and Ultraman. King of Fighters 95 is awesome. Ultraman is pretty lame. Honestly, it sucks. So this is really the only game you need to worry about. So consider this. King of Fighters 95 was only released in Japan. It's a Japanese Saturn game only, never released in the United States. However, the ROM cartridge I have here works fine in the US Saturn. Works great. So let's say you have a stock Saturn and you want to play the King of Fighters 95. So with this particular game, you need both the cartridge and the CD to put in your Saturn to play that game. Since it's a Japanese only game, you would need the action replay card or whatever cart to put in your Saturn to unlock it, to unlock the region so you can play that disc. But then you can't play the game because your card is already taken and you can't put this in. So that's the dilemma with these two particular games. These are the only two games that have ROM cartridges that I'm aware of. Any other games don't really matter. It's kind of particularly a big deal for King of Fighters 95 because this game is awesome. It rocks. Great 2D fighter. So anyway, I'm kind of done rambling. I just kind of wanted to give you the options you have as far as unlocking the region and playing backups on your Saturn. You don't have to do these two things right here. You have some options. This is just what I'm going to be doing in the video. You can definitely do. You can definitely take other options if you want to. This is just an instructional video on how to install these two. So again, you can use a region unlock cart. You can use a switch to change the region, or you can install a region-free BIOS. It's really up to you. This is a more of a convenience than having to put a cartridge in or flip a switch every time you want to, change region. For this, you just pop the game in and you're done. As far as playing burn games go, the swap trick works okay, but ultimately you need a mod chip. The disk swap will not last forever. You'll eventually break your Saturn. To avoid that, you need to install a mod chip. That's all there is to it. So I'm done. I just again, I just wanted to keep you guys informed on what your options are as far as playing burn games and other region games. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to go ahead and tear down the Saturn and we'll get started. Alright, so I want to take a minute and talk about the region-free BIOS and the Modchip a little bit more. I know I'm kind of going on at this point, but I'm doing this just to keep you guys informed. I want to make sure that you guys know what you're getting into if you decide to do this to your Saturn. So first, I'm going to talk about the region-free BIOS here. So like I said, this is just it's just an SOIC, something you would solder to the motherboard, and here's the motherboard itself. So the Saturn went through a lot of revisions. So depending on which revision Saturn you have depends on where your BIOS chip is located on your Saturn motherboard. One really cool thing about the really early launch Saturns is that the BIOS itself is actually socketed. It's a dip package, so you can actually just remove it and put a new one in. Simple as that. It's socketed. On everything else, they are actually soldered to the motherboard themselves. So again, depending on which version Saturn you have, your BIOS will either be on the top of the motherboard somewhere around here, or it'll be here on the bottom. It just kind of depends. On this particular model motherboard, the BIOS is right here. It's this chip right here. And again, it depends on which one you have. As far as I'm aware, and this goes for every model Saturn out there, as far as I'm aware, the BIOS is always going to be marked IC7. You can't see it right here because I'm not really zoomed in, but this chip right here is marked IC7. That's the designator for the BIOS, as far as I'm aware, for every Saturn ever made. If I'm wrong, please leave a comment and correct me so that I can annotate the video, because it is pretty important to know where your Saturn BIOS is. But as far as I'm aware, it's always going to be IC7, and it's going to be either on the top or the bottom of your motherboard, depending on which version Saturn you have. On this one we'll be working on the video today, it's on the bottom here. So, again, just want to keep you guys informed. Now, if you decide to install a region-free BIOS, you do have some options. So, me personally, this is just my personal taste. I don't like the US boot up screen for US Saturns. The text is kind of, it looks like Comic Sans, and it's kind of ugly. I like the Saturn boot up screen a whole lot better, and it just, to me, it just looks better. So that's what I got on this region-free BIOS. I got the Japanese Saturn boot up screen flashed to this BIOS, but it has English text so you can read everything. So this is technically a Japanese BIOS, but it's still region-free, and it's got English text so you can read the menus and things. You can also get BIOSes flashed with the Hi-Saturn boot up animation. And I think there's one for the Victor Saturn or the V Saturn. I think that one's different as well. So you have some options you can play with around here for the region-free BIOS. Kind of depends on your preference. I just like the Japanese boot up, so that's what I got. If you want to order one of these chips, I'll include a link in the description where you can buy one from 02K11 from Assembler Games. I think these chips in particular cost about $7-8, so not too bad. So it's actually pretty affordable. Now I want to move on and talk about the Modchip here. So the Modchip, these are really easy to install. So basically you take your CD drive right here, the Modchip goes in line with that, and then you take whichever ribbon cable you need, and you'll plug it into the other end, and that goes to your Saturn motherboard. Very easy. It's almost literally plug and play. One one awesome thing about these, the Universal, or the Phantom Universal chip, is that it supports Saturns with 20 pin and 21 pin ribbon cables on your CD drive. So the early ones had 20 pins, the later models had 21 pins. So this will accommodate both types. This also accommodates the rare Sanyo CD drives. I think those are only found like overseas or something like that, but it says Phantom Universal. It is literally universal. It will fit in any Saturn, which is awesome. These are $29 from the same website, Assembler Games. You can buy them from 02K11. He ships out of Canada, and he ships worldwide, if I'm not mistaken. So no matter where you live, I think there's a few countries he doesn't ship to, but basically no matter where you live, you can get both of these things here. He also sells some other parts, but honestly, considering what Saturn games cost now, a $30 or excuse me, a $29 Modchip and a $7 region-free BIOS is a very inexpensive compared to paying hundreds of dollars for Saturn games. So in my opinion, this is a very affordable setup for the amount of enjoyment you would get out of your Saturn. So yeah, definitely worth the investment here, guys, in my opinion. So again, just want to keep you guys informed on your options here. Again, you have options as far as playing different region games. This is not your only option. This is just one. And again, the Modchip is not your only option. This is just the best option. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start with installing the region-free BIOS. We'll take a look at the motherboard, and I'll show you how to do that real quick, and then we'll move on to the Modchip here. Okay, so right now I'm preparing to install the region-free BIOS. Real quickly, I want to talk about the existing BIOS here. So this is probably the hardest part of installing the region-free BIOS, is because this BIOS, or this chip right here, and every other chip on the bottom of the circuit board are glued to the board with epoxy. If I'm not mistaken, they do that so that they can wave solder the board all in one go. They don't have to like flip it upside down and wave solder it a second time. It's basically to keep the stuff on the board while they wave solder. So it's smart business practice, but it sucks when we want to install a new chip here. So the glue they use is really strong stuff. So let me tell you this firsthand, you really need to be careful when you remove the existing BIOS, because if you're not careful, you can definitely wreck your board. It's not easy to get this guy off. Desoldering the pins, it's basically pretty easy as long as you can see small stuff, or you have like a magnifying glass or microscope. Removing the chip from the board, you almost have to use brute force. It sucks. So what I'm going to do right here is I am going to take my soldering iron and probably these tweezers, maybe a needle or something, and I'm going to desolder, or I'm going to basically lift each leg of the chip so that it's no longer connected to the board. And I'm going to do that on both sides. I've seen people use angle cutters like this. Honestly, I believe this is a little bit too big to actually get in there and surgically cut those legs. It's really up to you. If you're not careful, you can rip the pads off the board with this thing. So take your time and do it right if you decide to use angle cutters. Personally, that kind of freaks me out, so I like to use either a needle or these tweezers, and I'll heat the leg and then lift it off, and I'll just do that for each one. It takes longer, but it's a lot safer, and you're probably not going to wreck your board if you know what you're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and lift each pad here. I want to try to do it so that it doesn't take for freaking ever, at least on the video, and then we'll continue on to removing the actual chip from the board.
As you can see, it's not too terribly difficult. I mean, you're not going to get this perfect the first time, but that's okay. The most important thing to do is to just take your time and do it correct the first time. And you see that third pin there, I don't have it completely desoldered. Something you definitely don't want to rush. Because if you do, you can wreck these tiny solder pads. So I've got the first 3 done right there. Don't really worry about destroying the chip because we're not going to use the chip anyway, unless you have plans to reuse this, which if you want to reuse it, that's fine. It may be difficult to get the chip off the board without destroying it, but maybe you can. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and continue on down this row right here, and desolder these pins. Alright, so there you go, guys. It's not exactly pretty. You could reuse this chip if you wanted to, but I don't plan to reuse it, so I'm not really worried about it. The only thing I'm worried about is making sure that the solder pads here are not damaged, and from what I can see they're not, but I'll go over them anyway just to make sure, but I'm sure they're not damaged. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do the back side of this on this side, same process. And then we'll get to actually removing the chip from the board. Alright, here we go, guys. So I've got both sides desoldered here. So before we attempt removing the chip, make 100% sure that both sides are completely desoldered. Take a needle or maybe a pair of tweezers or a piece of paper or something. Just run it underneath these pins just to make sure that everything's desoldered. If it's not and you take the chip off, you run a high risk of tearing the pad off the board and therefore either having to fix it or throw your Saturn away if you're not that skilled to fix it. So just do yourself a big favor and just make sure. So I'm just running my tweezers underneath here and it looks like everything's desoldered. And yeah, looks like everything's desoldered, so I think we're good. Well, I'm actually 100% sure we're good now. So here's the scary part. So you're gonna have to take pliers or something, and you're gonna have to gently but firmly remove the chip from the board because it is glued down. It's not going anywhere. So I've used needle nose pliers. You might be able to get away with regular pliers and grip it by both ends right here. You're gonna have to find your own way to do it. I have heard that people will use a heat gun to soften up the epoxy underneath. I've tried that and it didn't work for me. So maybe Sega used a different epoxy on that, whatever success story that was. I don't know. I just know that using the heat gun didn't really help anything. So I'm just going to take my needle nose pliers here, very gently grip both sides and just try my best to work this thing off without scratching any traces or doing anything bad. Guys, really take your time doing this. Even if it takes you a few hours, you don't want to wreck your board. Trust me. Just keep working at it. It will eventually come off. Just really take your time. So, you know, I'm just going to grip it like this, and I'll get back to you in a second. Alright guys, so here is our removed chip. As you can see, I pretty much had to destroy this thing to get it off. So in this particular case, you don't have a chance of reusing this if you wanted to. I don't plan on reusing it, so I'm not worried about it, but yeah, it is what it is. What I actually had to do was I had to take my pliers here and grab it long ways to actually get a good grip on it. Grabbing it like this doesn't really work that well. So therefore I had to destroy the legs, but you know. Anyway, so on this particular motherboard, you can see where it was glued down. Sometimes they have like big globs, and that makes it really hard to get these things off. This one actually had just the little bitty points. This one wasn't too bad. It took me about 10 minutes to get this guy off, with just some gentle force. I've had other ones that take a few hours. Like I'll have to stop and come back to it later because I just get fed up with it. But hopefully yours is not that bad. Anyway, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the pads. And then I'm going to take some alcohol and a Q-tip and clean up the flux around here just to make sure my work area is clean so that the new installation will go in smoothly. Okay, so now that you have your work area clean, it's time to go ahead and prep the pads here. All the pads here on the front side they look fine. The ones on the back side, they're lacking a little bit, so I'm just going to go ahead and touch these up. Just make sure they're ready for the new chip installation. And you don't want to really bog these down with a lot of solder. I'm just giving them a real light coat. I guess I'll just go ahead and do it on this side while I'm at it, but just giving it a real light coat just to get that prepared. It's easy stuff so far. Kind of got a little solder bridge there. But yeah, okay. By the way, these big pads on the edges, they're connected to this first pin, so don't worry about that. Those are physically connected. All right, so that looks good. Pads are prepped. So again, I'm just going to take Q-tip and alcohol, go over this again to clean up the mess. Okay, so now it's time to install our new BIOS here. So you may not be able to tell this by looking at it, but the new chip is actually longer than the old one, so it doesn't fit exactly on the board. That's fine. It'll still work. So you're going to line it up by this edge right here. So this is the actual edge of the motherboard on this particular model. You're going to line the chip up on the edge away from pin 1. You're going to line it up right here, and then these two pins, the pins 1 and 2, and then pins 43 and 44 here on this back side, these are not connected, so we're going to lift those. We're just going to straighten those pins out so they don't get connected. At least they don't get connected to the motherboard. I mean, we'll still use them, but we're lifting those off so that the rest of the pins will make contact with the motherboard correctly. So you can kind of see how it's going to look now. It basically fits right in place. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our BIOS here. And we're going to basically prep it. So again, the pins 1 and 2 and then pins 43 and 44 here on the edge get lifted. So I'm going to go ahead and bend those out straight so that they are not going to be connected to the motherboard. And there we go. As you can see, pins 1 and 2, and so if I flip this guy around, pins 43 and 44 are lifted. So that's all you got to do, basically. Just simple stuff. So we're going to go ahead and take this guy and we're going to install it on the motherboard. Okay, so as you can see here, there's glue left over on the board. Don't worry about it. Don't even attempt to get that off, because you could definitely cut some of these traces and that would not be good at all. So we're just going to put the chip over that. Even if it doesn't sit perfectly, we'll make it work. Don't even bother with that. So we're just going to take the chip and just lay it right there, and just going to kind of get it lined up, kind of like that. I forgot to mention that this chip is also a little bit wider, just maybe just a millimeter, so the pins don't line up exactly. If we look at it like this, the pins don't line up exactly on the pads. So what I have found is that I'll have to take the chip, or excuse me, I'll have to take the pins on the chip and kind of bend them inward, maybe half a millimeter on both sides, to make it physically touch the pads. Just gonna have to do that with some trial and error to see what works for you. So again, I'll just want to do that off camera. Just bend the pins in a little bit on both sides to make them actually lay on the pads the way they're supposed to. Okay, so I just bent those pins in a little bit, and maybe you can see this, maybe not. We'll try. Just use my fingers. So hopefully you can see that the chip fits a little bit better. If I don't mess it up, the chip fits a little bit better on there now that the pins are bent inward a little bit, maybe just half a millimeter. They actually lay on the pads this time. So I mean that's a lot of explanation, but basically all we've done is we conformed the chip to fit the motherboard. That's all we're doing. We're just making it fit perfectly. Not much else to it. So at this point, we're ready to go ahead and tack in the corners so that it doesn't move, and then we'll go ahead and properly solder in the chip. Okay, so we're ready to install. Off camera, I took the chip here and I just kind of pre-tinned the legs a little bit to help them go on easier. Pretty simple stuff there. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to place the chip in, and then I'm going to tack in the 4 corners of the chip, and then we'll go in and solder the rest of them just to keep it in place. And I'm going to try to get this thing lined up, and we'll go ahead and get it soldered in. Now we're going to do the other two corner pins here. That one's not going on. I might need to realign the chip a little bit. Let me check it out and I'll get back to you in a second. Alright, so sorry about that. The chip is lined up fine. It was my mistake. I just wasn't getting the heat on that last pin like I meant to. But anyway, it's good now. So I took some flux and I just kind of lightly went along this edge right here. So we're ready to go ahead and solder in this side. Okay. You can see there I made a bridge. It's okay. I'll get it in a second. Mistakes are fine. Just make sure you fix them. I'm going to go back and solder the outer two because they didn't really get a good solder job the first time. They were just kind of there to hold it in place. Okay. And I want to go over it again with some flux to make sure that it's perfect. So before I actually clean this up, I'm going to go ahead and do this side as well to make sure that the chip is in place, and then we'll clean up the flux mess. Alright, so everything's perfect, just double check that. I'm going to go ahead and take a Q-tip and alcohol and clean up this solder, or excuse me, the flux on both sides, being mindful of the two pins on either side that we haven't soldered. Really don't want to break those off, guys, but just remember that. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean up this flux real quick, and we'll move on. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and finalize the chip install here. So we got the chip installed onto the motherboard. Now we just need to provide it some power. So that's where the two legs come in that are not connected to anything. We're going to go ahead and connect those now. So you're going to need some wire. In this video I'm using 30 gauge wire, also known as Kynar wire. This is just really thin wire, that's all it is. So in order to connect ground is going to be on this side of the chip, and then power will be on that side, and I'll show you that in a minute. So what we're going to do, we're going to connect this lifted pin 2, the one that we didn't solder. We're going to connect pin 2 to pin 13, somewhere around here. A really easy way to find pin 13 is it's going to be connected to this capacitor right here, and I am actually pointing at it right here. This is pin 13. This is like this, kind of like the fat trace if you're looking at your circuit board. We're connect pin 13 to pin 2. So we just need to, take our wire, cut it to the appropriate length, and we'll go ahead and solder it on. So there's our piece of wire. I just cut it to length and kind of shaped it a little bit. What I like to do, just to keep it clean looking, is I like to place the wire along the top edge of the pins. If you want to, you can run it around here on the circuit board. It's entirely up to you. I just like to keep my work clean and professional looking. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and take pin 2 here, and I'm going to go ahead and tin it. Just like so. And then I'm going to attempt to take my wire and solder it to pin 2. Go. So real quickly, I want to inspect my work, make sure it's perfect, and then we'll move on to the other side. Alright, so I got the other wire already cut and formed. So this is our power wire, and on this side of the chip, it's going to be the last two pins right here that we raised. Pins 43 and 44 are going to go down here and connect to pin 23 on the other edge, or the other end. So I'm just going to go ahead and tin 43 and 44. And now alright, so there you go, guys. We are all finished. Got the ground and power wires hooked up. I forgot to mention that pin 1 on the chip is not used, so if you want to clip pin 1 off, you totally can. It's just not used, so I'll just leave it on there. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, so you know, we got the chip soldered into the motherboard. Make sure all that's correct, and then we took their 2 power wires, ground and I think it's 3.3 volts, and we got those soldered to the chip, and it looks great. If you don't have 30 gauge wire, you might be able to get away with using the signal wires out of an Ethernet cable. Those are, I think they're 28 gauge, so that's pretty close. You could probably get away with that. However, 30 gauge wire is pretty easy to work with in this situation because it's so small. But yeah, overall installing a region-free BIOS is not difficult. It's just a little bit time consuming, and you have to work with small stuff. So you could totally do this by hand. I guess you could use hot air if you wanted to, but really it's not necessary. Doing it with just a plain soldering iron will work just fine. So yep, that's it guys. Region-free BIOS is done. Now we're going to move on to installing the Modchip, which is super easy. So before we start anything else, it'd be a good idea to go ahead and clean your CD-ROM drive, because burned games don't read all that well on dirty lenses and things like that. So I'm not going to actually do it because this has already been cleaned. I'm just going to kind of show you some pointers real quick. So first off, you can go ahead and take off this plastic shielding or whatever it is. You can just squeeze these two sides right here. It kind of clips in and kind of removes like that, and so that, you know, that gives you the CD spindle and then the laser assembly right here. One thing I always do is I'll take some light grease and I'll lightly grease all of the gear assembly right here on everything, just because after about 20 years now, you know, most of the grease is gone. You can I also grease the rail here. The rail that the lens slides across. You can take that out and clean it if you want to. Definitely take some alcohol and a Q-tip and clean the lens here gently. If it's really filled up with hair, what I would do, I would take this top plastic piece off of the lens and maybe get it in there with some tweezers and maybe pull some hair out. If you really need to, you can do that. It's an option. And then lastly, if we look here on the back of the drive, you see the orange potentiometer right there. You can use this to increase and decrease the laser intensity if you're having issues reading burned games. So this is a last resort. Do not mess with this until you've cleaned it, because I've had Saturns and PlayStations and other game systems where they won't read a burned game until you actually clean the lens and, you know, clean all the gunk out of the CD-ROM drive. And after that, you don't even need to adjust this because it just works. So always clean your CD-ROM drives before you attempt to mess with the laser potentiometer. This is a last resort. So if you clean the drive and you know that your burns are good and it's still not reading your burns, you can adjust this with a
with a screwdriver. Now I'm kind of trying to remember off the top of my head here, but if I remember correctly, you're going to, if you need to adjust this, you would turn it clockwise to increase the resistance, which would therefore decrease the laser intensity, and then vice versa for turning it counterclockwise. Turn it counterclockwise to increase the intensity or decrease the resistance. If I'm wrong, I'll annotate that. I really don't remember. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, but if I'm wrong, I'll annotate it. But yeah, the potentiometer on the laser assembly is always the last resort. Always clean your CD-ROM drive and always verify that your burns are good before you adjust that. Okay guys, so it's time to start installing our chip now. So if you decide to buy the Phantom Universal, it comes with installation instructions for every model Saturn. So no matter what model you have, it tells you how to install the chip in that model. It is a little bit different depending on if you have a Model 1 or a Model 2 Saturn. It's not more difficult, it's just different. So definitely read the instructions on installing the chip, because it is different for different model Saturns. In this particular video, we're going to be installing it in a Model 1 Saturn with a 20-pin ribbon cable. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, the Saturn had a lot of revisions. Probably one of the biggest revisions is the CD drive. So on the earlier models, they have what's called a 20-pin ribbon cable. There's 20 conductors or 20 pins on the ribbon cable. On later model CD-ROM drives, it was 21 pins. The chip is compatible with both. You just need to know what you have so you can install it properly. So in this Model 1 Saturn, this is a 20-pin ribbon cable. And if you don't know exactly how to determine that, you can take the two ribbon cables that came with your chip, and if you just eyeball it, you can kind of see one is a little bit smaller than the other. But if you can't, you take one of the ribbon cables, compare it to what you have already, and that will tell you whether you have 20 or 21 pins. But this is a 20-pin cable, so this extra ribbon cable right here is just 21 pins. I don't need it for this installation. So we're going to be using the 20-pin here. So basically, the existing ribbon cable plugs into the Modchip, and then our new ribbon cable plugs into the other side of the Modchip, and then that goes to our Saturn. The Modchip sits in the middle between the CD-ROM drive and the Saturn itself. The great thing about this chip is that it is universal. So if you have a 20 pin, it'll go in here, come out here. If you have a 21 pin, you just flip it the other way. It'll go in here and come out here. Pretty simple stuff. But always make sure you read the directions, because if you have a Model 2 Saturn, you have to make a little solder switch up here, and then you have to take your piece of wire here, and you have to wire 5 volts to the CD-ROM drive so that the chip can get power. Otherwise it won't work. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're not going to really install this per se. We're going to get it wired up so that we can test it to make sure it works, and then we'll finalize the installation. So if you're looking at your chip, see if I can get this in focus. See right here where it says MB20, and right here where it says CD21. All around these 4 connectors here it'll say MB20, MB21, etc. So the MB20, well, let's start with the CD20. Sorry, right here where it says CD20, this means this is where the ribbon cable from the CD-ROM drive goes into here, and then it's going to come out the other side here where it says MB20. This goes to the motherboard. Again, read the instructions, but this is pretty simple stuff. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to unlock the tabs on this socket. Okay, so it's unlocked, and I'm going to take my ribbon cable here and just kind of slide it in the socket. There we go. And then we'll just lock it in place. There we go. You have to use a little bit of force, but it's not bad. So it's locked in place now. Then we're going to take our 20-pin ribbon cable that we got with the chip, and we're going to stick it in the opposite side right here.
And remember, the pins are facing up on the chip. Don't flip these upside down, otherwise your chip won't work. There we go. And then we'll lock this side in place. Alright, and there we go. A little bit tight for some reason. Maybe this is just a later Modchip, but anyway, it's in there tight. It's not going anywhere, so that's good. So basically this end plugs into our motherboard, and then we have the rest of it wired up right there. So now we need to take our power cable here, and we need to wire it to the chip. So there's two 5-volt pads on the chip where you can provide power. You're only going to use one. Make sure that you only use one. There's two of them for depending on how you orientate your chip. So only connect one pad. So I'll just connect it to this one. I guess it doesn't really matter. Connect the wire to that right there, and then on the underside of the CD-ROM drive, we'll connect it there. So I'm going to flip the CD-ROM drive upside down so that we can take a look at that and see where to install that 5 volts or that ground wire. There we go. So on the underside of the board, here's the spindle motor right here. You see kind of where it says motor right there. And then so we're going to be connecting the wire to a capacitor on the underside here. So if you're looking, you kind of see this capacitor symbol right here, and then there's like a little plus sign right there. Maybe you can see that. So we're going to be connecting the wire to this solder pad right here. That's a capacitor on the top side of the board. So I'm just going to add a little bit more solder to that. Make sure it goes in. There we go. And we'll lay my wire right there. And there's our wire. I just want to make sure that's a good connection. And it is, looks good. And we are ready to take our wire and solder it to our Modchip once we get this back in the Saturn. Okay, here we go. So we've got the Saturn here. So I'm going to take the CD-ROM drive. I'm going to lay it in here. Make note of the two power cables or whatever these are right here. Just make sure they're not underneath there. And then you have the ground strap right here. Just make sure that's just hanging loose. Here is our power cable coming from the underside of the CD drive, and here is our Modchip ready to be installed. Let me strip this cable real quick. There we go. I just tinned that wire. I did it off camera. Sorry. And then I'm going to tin the connection here on the chip. There we go. And we'll take my wire here, solder it to the chip. There we go. And now our chip has power. If you want to, you can take some electrical tape or whatever, just put a little piece on there. That's what I would do, so just prevent it from shorting out on this, just to keep it safe. What I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to just connect this into the Saturn kind of like this, and I'm going to test a burn CD just to make sure the chip is working before I actually go through the whole process of folding it in here and getting it finalized. Just in case I made a mistake, I want to be able to fix it real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so I got a game here. We're just going to go ahead and test it real quick. I've got a clothespin on the door switch to keep the lid closed. Got the Modchip installed. It's just not finalized. It's just kind of hanging out. But I just want to show you that that this is working. I've already tested this, but I just want to show you that this will work. So right here, this is a burned copy of Radiant Silvergun. This is you remember, this is a Japanese only game, so I just wrote Japan on it so I would know. This is a Japanese only release. This is not patched. This is just a straight copy of a Japanese game. Just gonna pop that on there.
So I'm just going to kind of hold the chip out of the way so it doesn't touch the CD, but first we'll take a look at the boot up screen. This is a US Saturn. This is a North American Saturn, and it's going to have a Japanese boot up screen, and then it'll play a Japanese game because of the region-free BIOS, and it's a burn game, so we have the Modchip to take care of that. Anyway, I'm done rambling. Let's go ahead and turn this guy on. And yes, it is totally 1994. Yes, English. Okay, here we go. And there we go, guys. Radiant Silver Gun. Alright, and there we go. So, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to finalize the installation on their chip, and we'll go ahead and put it back together. Alright, so we're ready to install the Modchip. So again, there's no exact science to this. It just kind of depends on how you can get it in. For Model 1s, typically you'll connect it like this, and you'll flip the chip over and it'll kind of fold in and lay there. I want to take some tape right here. This is some Captain tape, and I'm just going to cover up the 5-volt line right here so that it's protected. So with this being a Model 1, I'm just going to take the chip, kind of flip it upside down like this, and that's kind of how it'll lay in the Saturn. Don't really need to worry about anything shorting out, because you've got kind of the barrier right here with the ribbon cable. So there's not really any metal parts that can short out, so you're pretty safe. I just put the tape on there on the 5-volt just to be super safe. So yeah, it's going to kind of lay like that, and then here's your power cable going to the CD-ROM drive underneath. As far as securing the chip, there's really no real way to do it unless you use just electrical tape. This kind of seems janky, because it kind of is, but this is really the only way to do it. So I'm just going to take some electrical tape, just kind of measure it out. Go about that far, I guess. That's a good 6 inches. So I'm going to lay the chip down, and actually I think I'll start right here from the front. So I stuck the tape down there to the bottom of the case, and I'm just going to run it across the chip like this, pull it pretty tight, and secure it to the case right there. It does look kind of janky, I know, but honestly this is the best way to do it. So as long as you're satisfied that nothing is, there's no metal touching or anything like that, which this should be okay, we're basically done. If you don't feel comfortable with the tape sticking, you could probably put a perpendicular piece of tape across both ends just to make sure it doesn't come off. But that's basically it, guys. You just got to tape it down. Now if you have a Model 2 Saturn, your CD-ROM drive ribbon cable, it'll probably be right here, so you'll probably have to still flip the chip upside down, or whichever way you got to do it to get it to lay in there. But same principle, you're probably still going to have to tape it down. So we're basically done, guys. I mean, chip's installed, region-free BIOS is installed. We've already tested it, we know it's working, so we just got to put it back together. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay guys, so real quickly I just wanted to say a few words about burning games for your Saturn, and I mean really for any CD based console for that matter, like the PlayStation. There's a lot of information and a lot of misinformation on the internet on how to burn CDs for your game consoles, and it's really not the fault of the person posting the information. It's just that a lot of the information doesn't work for other people because there are so many variations in CDs and CD burners and consoles. It's kind of a nightmare. So I do want to say a few things about burning CDs to try to get you pointed in the right direction, because it's all well and good if you get your console modded, but if you can't play games on it because you can't burn a CD and get it to play, you know, it sucks. So with any CD-based console, you always want to use good quality media. More than likely, if you go to Walmart and pick up a pack of Memorex, it's not going to work. So I'm going to recommend two brands of CDs that I always buy when I want to burn a game. These two are just like the best I've ever found. So the first one is these are Verbatim brand. Specifically, these are Data Life Plus Azo. These are really high quality CDs and they work really well. I've used these with PS1 games and Saturn, and they always work. More than likely, if you burn a coaster, it's probably not the CD. It's probably either the image you used or the way you burned it, more than likely. Another good quality CD is this stack of 100 I bought from Amazon. These are, I don't know how you pronounce this, but it's Tandem / JVC. These are also very high quality CDs. They're great. I mean, they're just as good as Verbatims. So Verbatim and the Tandem / JVC, highly recommend those. The Verbatims are a little bit more pricey than these typically, because this was a stack of 100. I think I got it for $11 on Amazon, which is a great price. I mean, awesome. The Verbatims, I believe, are a little bit more expensive just because I think they only come in packs of 25 or 50. I think they're about $10 or $11, but you just get less CDs. But either one is great. If you go on Amazon, search for Verbatim Data Life Plus Azo, or search like 100 pack or 100 count Tayo Yuden, and get you a stack of CDs, because you really can't go wrong with either one of these. Alright everybody, so let's go ahead and test this guy out. Got everything put back together. So just going to make one final run and just make sure that everything's working. So I'm going to go ahead and test the King of Fighters 95. We got the RAM cartridge right there underneath the game. First, I want to let you see what the boot up screen looks like properly on the TV. I've also got this thing running through RGB SCART, so it's going to give us the best picture possible. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn this guy on. And oh yes, of course it's 1994. I hate this thing. There we go. And as you can see, we got the Japanese BIOS, but with the English text so that we can actually read it. In my opinion, the Japanese BIOS is way cooler than the American one. I just like the intro or the boot up sequence better. So let's go ahead and pop in a game. Take our game and put it in there. And we got the ROM cartridge that's required. Pop that guy in. And let's see if this works. And it is working, guys. So we have a Japanese only game running on an American Saturn with no region unlock cart. It's all super convenient. I guess you could say that. Let's go ahead. So definitely awesome, guys. Definitely recommend this mod. The Modchip is super easy to install. It's only $30.
it'll save you a lot of money in the long run. For instead of having to buy games, you just burn them. You'd actually enjoy the good Saturn titles that are available. The region-free BIOS might not be for everyone, but it's definitely an option. It's definitely a very handy option, because you don't have to use a cartridge every time you want to play an import game. It just works right out of the box, you know. So that's it, guys. We're all done. I mean, super simple to do on a Saturn. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. And in the meantime, take care.